Hi, this is George Alger, and welcome to today's segment of Our Ventura TV. Today's topic is filmmaking, and specifically how the change in the digital world has been affecting filmmaking and in comparison to music. So our guest expert today is a musician and a filmmaker, Chris J. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me, George. Appreciate it. Nice to be here.
Chris, give us a little thumbnail sketch of your music and filmmaking background.
No problem whatsoever. The very short version of a very long story is I'm a musician. I've been in a band called Army of Freshmen essentially ever since I got out of high school. We are Ventura-based, hence it works being here on Our Ventura. Got to travel the world, got to do all these wonderful things, got to have all these great experiences. All my dreams came true. But the one thing that did not come true is making any money, because right around the time that we really peaked and had a lot of attention, the music industry literally collapsed. It was one of those things. I finally got to the castle after the battle. I knocked on the door, they let me in, and there was nobody in the castle anymore. You know, the game was over. So what I ended up doing, besides going through a deep depression, was decided, you know what, I want to make a movie. Like, why not? Why not be one of those guys that has a screenplay like everybody else? And that's exactly what myself and my partner in the band, a gentleman, Aaron Goldberg, decided to do. We wrote our screenplay and said, we're not going to go down the music industry route of begging people to watch it or read it. We're just going to find a way to make this thing. That's what we did. We made a movie. We shot the entire thing here in Ventura, and the film is called The Bet, and it's shortly to be coming out worldwide. So that's my story.
Well done, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's can you give me a little thumbnail sketch of how the digital evolution changed music over the last few decades?
I mean, it was, I equate it to this. Imagine being a horse and buggy maker. The year is 1910, and you are making great horse and buggies, and then all of a sudden a Ford comes down the street past your shop, and suddenly in that split moment, you know what you are doing will never, ever, ever be relevant anymore in terms of making a living. When MP3s came along, when downloading came along, it was pure devastation, and a lot of people in the music industry put their head in the sand and said, no, this is a phase, this is a fad, this won't stick, there's no way to carry this across. But the technology got better and better and better, and now we find ourselves in a culture where a 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kid like you and I that would have went to a record store, that would have lived and breathed and paid for music and spent his allowance on records, it's obsolete. Music is free. Music floats in the air now, so we live in a society where there's more music being made than ever, but it's literally not monotonized. You know, with the exception of collectors who may buy a vinyl, people aren't buying CDs, and they're not even buying downloads anymore. Initially, people thought, okay, with iTunes, for instance, well, people will pay $1 online to buy it that way, and I won't have a CD anymore, but I will pay for it to keep on my computer. But then when they realized how easy it was to rip it and share these things, now that's gone. Music's free. You and I want to hear a song, we can go online right now and listen to it. It's complete devastation from the financial aspect of the music industry, and it made it extraordinarily difficult for bands like Army of Freshmen. We were like middle-class rockers, you know, like we weren't the headlining act, but we weren't the bar band either. We were on tour, we were opening up for the bigger guys, but they toss you $100 and we would survive off CD sales, get to the next city by selling records. And then suddenly we really saw around 2008, 2009 specifically, something was happening. There was a distinct change. Less CDs were being sold on tour, less bands were going out. The prices were becoming a lot cheaper to get bands, and then clubs started closing and promoters started closing and labels started going out of business, to the point that a decade later now, essentially, we're speaking in the mid-2000s, late 2000s, it's a different world. It's a completely different universe. So it's been devastating. I mean, I pull no punches when I say that. I mean, it affected what I thought I was going to do with my life, and it's kind of depressing. Yeah.
Yes, so obviously I've heard this from many, as so many other people have heard this from many areas as well. And for the purposes of this discussion, we also want to look at this parallel in the music, between the music and the film world. I have heard some say that the film world is going through a similar evolution in the sense of, as prices for equipment comes down, it's democratizing filmmaking in the sense that anyone can make it, but it is also there's so much material that's readily available that the opportunities for our either more competitive or it's harder to make a living.
Yeah.
Tell me what your perspective is on this.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I think filmmaking is experiencing what the music business experienced about 10 years ago, because now movies and TV shows are being downloaded, being pirated, and are available for streaming. You know, the major services like Netflix and Hulu, you're paying a flat price for monthly access to a vast library of film that 10 years ago you would need to go to a video store like a Blockbuster and pay your $3 to rent Citizen Kane and your $3 to rent Jaws and your that's three movies for $9.99. Now for $9.99 the whole world's at your fingertips. So for the smaller indie filmmakers like myself, since I've recently hopped into this and made my own movie, one of the hardest lessons for me to find out, and we found out the hard way, was we thought you make a movie, and if it's good, you could potentially sell it to a studio or a distribution company and maybe make your money back or make a little more, and you hear all these wonderful stories. But the reality now is it's not that. These companies they're getting films, but they're not paying for films. Essentially what you get is, well, you don't have a name in it, we can't afford to pay for it. We'll put it out for you. We'll put it out. Oh, we'll take it. We'll put it in all these different online stores, but we can't give you any money for it. And you're like, but I just spent X amount of dollars and all this blood, sweat, and tears. Like, isn't there a world where I could sell it to you? Oh, no. Like, we'll put it out. It's up to you to promote it. It's up for you to work it. And hopefully something cool will happen and a bunch of people will rent it, buy it. But if not, these distribution companies, they're free and clear because they don't have the money anymore to buy the films. It's very similar to what indie labels in the music industry did 10 years ago. They stopped signing bands for money. They were willing to put records out, but they weren't necessarily willing to pay for them. Now they don't even put records out anymore. Everybody just starts their own label, right? And you can see that going to film. Now there's companies like Distributor, that actually give you the ability to put your film on iTunes for a set fee, and then it's yours. You become the distribution company. So the parallels are unfortunately scary. And you said democratizing things, which I think is a really neat point, because it's interesting in that, yes, more people can make movies. Right now, you and I could shake hands and say, we're going out tonight with an iPhone, we're going to go write a screenplay in the next 30 minutes, and we're going to make a short film, we're going to film it on our phone. We could write it, film it, and put it on YouTube before the sun goes down. That's scary. That's a process. The process that I just told you used to take months upon months upon months. And technology has gotten to the point where you and I can do it in a matter of a couple hours. But when you democratize something like that, then everybody's playing the game. And as much as I love everybody playing the game, the market's flooded. There's just a ton of junk out there. We had so much trouble getting people to even watch our film when we were trying to get a distribution deal, because the company would be like, man, I want to watch this, but I'm sitting on 200 films here. And 10 years ago, they'd probably be sitting on 10 films, 5 films that they needed to see. So it's made everything easier. But now I think a lot of the talent is kind of getting, the cream used to rise to the top. Now the problem is there's so much thing blocking that cream to get to the top. Great things get lost that we never find out about because some company's putting out 1,800 Bigfoot movies that somebody shot in their backyard. And I say that as a fan of Bigfoot movies.
All right. So we're in the process of change, big change in the filmmaking world. We've been going through the process of change in the music world. I mean, would you say that from your perspective, we've completed the major changes in music and now we're really just trying to get on firm ground, or do you feel like we're still really, the music industry is still kind of lost in how it's going to monetize creative work?
I think the big change has already occurred. Okay. I think we're to the point where there really isn't money in the actual selling of music. There's still money in publishing, there's still money in touring, there's still money in live performance and merchandise sales, but in terms of, again, some 18-year-old kid making his first CD, going to a studio paying for it, printing it up, and then selling it at local shows, I think that system's kind of gone. Now you see a kid who's starting, he writes a song, he puts it up on YouTube, people watch him play it in his bedroom. Maybe he does record it, but recording is so much cheaper, they don't have to go to a studio. But he puts it online, he puts it on a site like Spotify, and people just listen to it for free, and it takes away the value. It's just simply, if you're not paying for something, you simply don't appreciate its worth as much. You just don't. People don't listen to records from top to bottom anymore. They just, song here, song there. Everybody's so busy, they don't, the attention span has changed dramatically, and I believe that film hasn't figured it out yet. The parallel is film's still a couple of years back. They're trying to figure out where is this going to land, but what we're seeing is the birth of video on demand and digital formats. So it used to be if your movie wasn't in a theater, you had no hope, right? You know, no one's going to see your movie. If it didn't make it to the theater, or maybe make it on TV, you got no chance. Well, now there's a world where there's cable video on demand. There's all sorts of different websites, from iTunes to where you can, there's tons of movies that you have the ability to rent or buy. So there's a lot more out there to find, but filmmakers now, they have the ability to get it out there more, as opposed to, well, George, I made a movie, but no studio wanted it, so you can't see it unless you come to my house and we put it in my, you know, DVD player. It's not the case at all. I could give you 5, 6 places where our film's going to be available, but will people find it without the money behind it, without that old theatrical system? That becomes the big question, and that's what the film industry is trying to figure out. How do we make a movie and put it out on all these neat platforms, but get people to care about it when they're so used to, if it's not a commercial on TV for a film, it is not a film that I am aware of.
Right.
You know, so it's, the lines are blurred, you know.
Right. We are getting close out of time, but I was
Cool.
wondering if you might be able to comment on a vision you might see from a person coming from a music background, going into a similar evolution of the film
Okay.
world, and where this is going. I mean, is there
Outside
a
of
hope-
psychiatric help.
is there a message of hope in here?
You know, you have to be hopeful, don't you? I mean, I think if you're an artist and you're into anything creative, the whole idea of being a creative person is you've created something out of nothing, right? You are a creator, and that in itself is a hopeful concept. So, I mean, as much as you can be negative about it, ultimately, if you're called to do it, if you really have a story that you want to tell and you want to film it, you're going to do it because you love it. And I think the hopeful thing is people are going back to doing things for the right reasons. I think if anybody's going to take the insane journey of making a film now, it's because, gosh darn it, they really believe that they need to create that and tell that story. So I think we'll see less people chasing the buck because the buck's not out there as much. And so maybe that's a good thing. Maybe at least we know when we see something now, man, somebody went through a lot of trouble to get this out there. And the same goes for music as well. If somebody takes the time to write songs and record them and release them, they're doing it knowing most likely they're not going to make any money, and probably a lot of people aren't even going to hear it, but they need to do it. So maybe we're going back to a primitive time of you create because you're called to create and you love, you know, what you need to do it. You're called to do it. So maybe that's the positive thing.
What would you say about even perhaps having to take on more responsibility as an artist in terms of marketing, because now you got to embrace a larger aspect of the industry?
I'm dealing with it as we speak, and that's the difficult thing. Not only was I co-writer of the film and a co-producer of the film, I was also the prop guy, and I was also the locations guy, and catering, and it was a small team. And now that the film is done and we're getting ready for release, now I've become the de facto publicist. Now I'm the publicist for the film, and I'm trying to set up appearances and interviews. I'm the party planner, putting together a premiere. These are jobs that usually a different person does every one of them. So if you are called to do something like this, you have to be prepared to wear a lot of hats. You have to go into it. If you literally say, my movie's done, I'm over it, the whole world will enjoy it now. That's not the case. That's when the real work starts, and you got to be ready for the long haul. Same with film and music, same thing.
Well said. So we really have to end right now, but can we sneak in your website and a very brief closing message?
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody would like to find about the film, which was shot completely here in the city of Ventura, one of the first movies ever to do so, you can find the movie. It's called The Bet, and it's online at thebetmovie2016.com. Then, of course, you can find on all the social media sites. And I appreciate you talking to me today. It's nice that the community of Ventura has supported this film, and that's a cool thing. This movie could not have been made in a lot of different cities, and the fact that it was made here is special, and I think it's a neat thing that kind of brings the music community, the film community, the arts community, the TV community together, and it is a supportive place, So I'm happy to be from here and live here, and I'm glad we got to make the movie here.
Thank you very much, Chris.
You're welcome, sir. Thanks for having me.
This is George Alger signing off for this segment of Our Ventura TV. Until we meet again.